And welcome to Star Trek Lost Stars. My name is Tony Morrow, and welcome to Today is a Tuesday. It is 8 o'clock Pacific time in the PM. And here we are today talking about the strategy that lost me my first game and how we're not going to make that mistake again. Also, exciting new news for all of you that have joined us today. I have received word from the Game Master to hurry the up because apparently he wants us to start processing turns. So while initially today's episode was going to be purely around just talking about the strategy that I employed in my very first game that led to my catastrophic defeat and how to avoid that going forward, but also to be able to maybe now take an opportunity to be able to maybe walk or map out the turn for turn 71 going to 75. So why don't we start off there? Actually, why don't I take you back to the map first of all, and we can take a quick look at that and then go from there. So here you can see I've got the map pulled up on Photoshop, and you can see the general kind of distribution of the map. You can see here that obviously we have the Paravians in the middle. Those are the bird brains. Basically tailored themselves. They're like feathered Gorn for those of you who are Star Trek fans. Feathered Gorn, or like feathered dinosaurs, except they walk upright, have digits, and so on. So, but the characteristic around this particular species and the way that they're going to be played in this particular campaign is they're modeled after sort of the Mongol horde, and that meaning that they're sort of they're highly mobile, they're very flexible, and they have the ability to do a lot of hit and run. I've been informed by the player who is running this faction that before I was looking at it and I was calling it Two Clan, like Toucan Sam. But he has informed me that it's ill, not as in your flows are so ill, but rather the term ill referring to, actually, let me pull it up here on my phone. Of course, I didn't plan this very well. So all that to say, where is it here? Of course, I can't find it when I'm looking for it. That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I'm going to get it eventually. Talking about juggernauts. And there we go, Mongolian prefix. So the Il clan is a Mongolian prefix, according to this player. I haven't verified this. I haven't looked this up, but meaning over or grand. So in the sense of this is the Grand Clan of Paravians, marauding the galaxy. That is sort of that's everything you need to know about how he's playing this particular faction. The Grand Clan, and again, using the Mongolian reference here. So again, the Mongol horde and so on. So we'll see how that pans out. But interesting to note, something to think about as we're moving forward. You can also see, back to the map, you can also see here the Federation in the bottom right corner, expanding away, doing their thing. We have the Borak, but basically we'll call them the Battletech faction. So the Game Master is running this particular faction, and it's the Battletech faction, I'll call it, because it is Starcom from Battletech. There'll be some opportunity in other live streams to be able to talk about that in greater depth as to sort of the narrative history and the background behind that. But if you have any experience with Battletech, please chime in the comments below and tell us what you know about Starcom and how that works. Interesting little facet here as I zoom in on the Borak faction. So the Borak is black and yellow, which I thought was cute. Whoa, that's a little, that's 800, not 80, which is what I was looking for. There we go. So you'll notice here, and I'll zoom in maybe to 120. So you'll notice here that the ships of the Borak have this interesting shape, which when you combine it with the colors, really makes it look like Batman. Don't you think? I mean, this one alone, the YFF, it looks like a wing, like a bat wing. And if you don't like that one, look at this one over here, the YSR, even more so. So very interesting, I thought. I mean, we could call them the Batman faction if we want, just to tease them. But the Borak, the Batman faction, Starcom, Battletech, all sorts of cute names that we can use to describe these guys. That's a little bit too small, don't you think? So in either way, that's his faction down there. Now, of course, we can't really reach out and touch them, so not too much of a concern for us in the short term. And then, of course, we have the Tholians, which, again, are those guys with the wedge-shaped ships, crystalline, normally a crystalline, like made out of crystals, people. But in the context of this game, they are elephantine, or basically they look like elephants with trunks that are not like a single trunk, but like a trunk with much more like a dual trunk. I think this is probably the best way to describe it. And the edges or the ends of the trunk are their like digits. So that's how they're sort of painting that picture. So anywho, that's sort of interesting. That's where we're at. One other thing I wanted to share. So here's the map straight up from Vassal. So in the last game, or in the last session, we talked about this wormhole. And I was looking at this little border indicator here as being potentially that's where the wormhole might have been. So it was pointed out to me that just because I hadn't paid attention, that all these little 5, 6 points, I should say, are equidistant from his homeworld. They are 10 hexes. These are the 10 hex reference points that the Paravians are using as sort of their milestone markers to say this is our territory. Now, because the Klingons have acknowledged that territorial limit, that is why we've established the border that we've established along the bottom here, but no one else has. So it'll be interesting to see how that paints out. Now, what's interesting about that is not only is the territorial limit, let's say, for example, with the Tholians are pretty far away from that territorial limit, and there's a good chance that the Paravians will get to it or past it if they want to before the Tholians show up. When it comes to the Feds are pretty close. I mean, look, this base right here is within 3 hexes of that, and their nearest base, which is going up here, is 4. So, I mean, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it's close, but I mean, chances are if the Feds want to, they'll get there first. And then here's the part that I find interesting. The Batman faction is only a couple hexes away. And I'll just preface this by saying, so this game is played by a bunch of friends. And there's a sort of a faction, a group of them within the greater group that have known each other since they were like teenagers. And they're a little older than me. And I've only known this crew for about, I guess it's about 10 years now. But 10 years compared to the many more years that they've known each other. They've played games like this before, not necessarily, they've played this one, of course, but they've played other games with each other all the time, and they know each other, and they like to poke each other, and there's a little bit of drama and history there. The game master has, and I mean, who knows how he's going to play this particular faction in this game. He has a way of playing that can be quite provocative, in the sense that most times, because he likes to challenge himself when it comes to dealing with the other players of these kinds of games, he really likes to push the boundaries. So it'll be very interesting to see how much he does or doesn't push the boundaries here. As you can see, he's got a tug right here, and he's going to be building a base, and it looks like he's going to push for this center line. And he's closer to it than the Praevians are, so it'll be interesting to see how that all maps out. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of evolves. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he's got 8 hexes out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So, yeah, his exploration has been pretty decent. And like I say, he's going to be bumping up against the border with the Praevians. So, as you saw with the map there, and here's just a quick look. You can see that the Praevians are in the middle. They're in the middle of the map, and they're going to be bumping up against everybody. So that's going to be an interesting little piece to think about. One other thing I'll mention before we get into the topic of today, which is the strategy that lost me the first game, is we talked about the fact that we lost a player, and as a way to get around that, we introduced this sort of like superpower faction that was going to be like the Borg and cause havoc. It was pointed out to me that I can find that faction here under minor fleets. So, Juggernaut. This is the race, or this is the faction we're talking about. We're talking about the Juggernauts. So, when it comes to their ships, these are the options. They have, I mean, don't get me wrong, a battleship's a battleship. It's going to be big and bad and everything. Their cruiser, can you see that? Yeah, I can't really zoom in, unfortunately. Yeah, I'll just pull this out so you maybe can see it a little bit better. So you can see this cruiser here is a 12. Well, even the Klingon cruiser, when we first get it, it's only going to be an 8-7, and then a straight 8 when we end up getting it. The D7, that is. So the D6 and the D7 are our cruisers in the M era, and these ships are bigger, better, and much stronger. So what that tells me is that these ships are GW ships. They're the top end of the tech tree. And this is what we're playing with, or sort of, should I say, fighting against. So we're going to be playing up against these guys wherever and whenever we find them. And like I say, they're like the equivalent of, or they're going to be very similar to the Borg in the sense that they're basically out there to cause major problems. They are not our friends. As you can see here, for example, the Klingon, these are GW ships. The Klingon B-10, which is a battle cruiser, is a 20. Good ship, but it's a 20. The Juggernaut battleship is a 22. So comparable, but still, they beat us. So interesting to kind of see that in real time. All right, so let's zoom out a little bit here, and actually let's go to the spreadsheet so we can have a better look at what's going on. Let's zoom in. So here's just a quick reminder of where we're at. So it is turn 71, and we are going to be going up to turn 75. That's what we're going to be doing today, and we're going to build a couple things out. Now, let's start with the strategy that lost me the first game. So the strategy that I had, and many of you have played any kind of real-time strategy games, or should I say just plain old strategy games that involve any kind of tech tree, you can do a tech rush. And the tech rush allows you to be able to get sort of bigger battery units faster before everybody else. And hopefully these powerful units can sort of sway things in your favor, make things very decisive when you decide to fight. And generally speaking, there's two big advantages to a tech rush. One, you have, well, I guess three. So when it comes to the specific fighting, your units are bigger, better, and stronger, meaning that there's an intimidation factor there, and you're more likely to win decisively in every fight. That's sort of the rationale, right? And that, two, that there is some aspect to the battle or the fighting that will, capabilities, let's say, of that particular unit that will bring you a disproportionate value. They're they're better than just being stronger. They've got other kind of functions, capabilities, abilities that allow them to do certain things in the game. And it depends on what game you're playing, but generally speaking, they can move faster, they can go longer, they have a bigger punch, that kind of thing. And then, of course, generally speaking, with a tech rush, is that you also get sort of the perks of the industrial or the production piece that goes with it. So generally speaking, if you have a tech rush, if it's not just the units you're looking for, as in like I can think of Civilization, for example, you might get a swordsman, or you might get a unit that's just stronger than the other units earlier, and that gives you a significant advantage. But also what comes along with that is the access to sort of resources and the industrial capacity to produce more, grow faster, and that kind of thing. So basically what ends up happening is you are better in a fight, and from an economic perspective, you are able to produce more over a shorter period of time. So you kind of double dip in that regard. That's generally speaking my assessment of a tech rush. That's where you get the big advantage. So two things. One, in this game, there's no sort of industrial advantage. There's no significant industrial advantage when it comes to the tech rush. There are some, and let me explain what those are. So we talk about fleet cap. So let me just switch sides here. So boop, there we go. So you can see here, for example, on the bottom here, you can see W has a 5 next to it. Here, let me zoom in and make that a little bit easier for you. There we go. So a W has a 5 next to it, a Y has a 6, an M has a 7, and GW has an 8. This is the number that your economy, or like the amount of EP that you can produce, is multiplied by in order to determine your fleet cap. So as you can see, the higher your tech level, the more fleet cap you have. So theoretically, you can have more ships. You can have more ships on standby or like in peacetime without incurring an extra cost. That would be the equivalent of your economic advantage. You don't produce more out of any particular resource. You don't grow faster, with a minor exception. So there's nothing really intrinsic to the industrial capacity of any advanced technology that really makes a difference. Now, one of the things I will say is when it comes to expansion or exploration, in the last live stream, we briefly explored or talked about the homebrew faction that we have when it comes to exploration. So one of the factors about exploration, and here I'll just pull this up real quick so you can see. Give it a second. All right, here we are. So in operations, yeah. So in operations, and we'll zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. You can see here that when it comes to the labs, the technology of your science labs, if you have W or Y labs, there is a -1 applied to your overall number. Again, looking at the top here, you can see that when you roll a 1d6, when you roll between a 1 and a 4, you fail. But if you're a survey ship, you get a +2. And if you have a prime team, you have a +1. So it's a +3 on your roll, meaning that you can roll a 2 or more and discover or lift the fog of war over any particular hex. Basically, you have 5 chances out of 6, right? But if you have a W and Y lab, so basically you haven't hit MTech labs, then you apply a -1 to that, meaning it's only a 60% chance, whereas before, obviously greater. So that's the only really big difference. It's not a seismic shift when it comes to this kind of stuff, but it is nonetheless something to think about. All right, so back here. When I did my first game, I did a tech rush. I went straight and hard for MTech. There were a couple things about that rush I didn't appreciate. One, there's a couple of factions in this game that have, we'll call it delayed onset technology. So, for example, you'll hit the milestone of MTech, and then you'll start showing, or you'll start the different models of ships will start coming off the assembly line. And what this means is like you've discovered the core technologies behind MTech, and then slowly but surely you're figuring out how to integrate those into ship designs and then roll them off the production line, right? So you might discover electric cars like Tesla has, but it took them a while to get the Model 3, or they're working on the Cybertruck. Ford is just starting to release the F-150 Lightning, that kind of thing. It takes them a while to actually turn their blueprints into a practical design that they can then throw, produce off the lot or produce off the assembly line. So in this context, and we'll go to the MSIT here as best example of this. So for example, let's go to, we'll go to MTech. Don't be alarmed by all the red. It's perfectly normal. Let's go down to the D battle cruiser. So again, these are the cruisers, the CAs, the D series for us. And you can see here in the date available column, look at the D6. I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see that a little bit better. The D6 shows up in year 121. Now, we've already established that 119 is the year that MTech, so when you get MTech, it's year 119. Boom. So if it's year 119 when that shows up, that means 2 years later you're going to get the D6. And then if you look down the line, for example, the D7, which is our strongest, I got the numbers wrong previously. So the D6 is a straight 7 ship, meaning 7 attack, 7 defense. And the D7 is an 8 attack, 7 defense. I think I previously said something like a 7-8, and then the D7 was a straight 8, but that's not right. What's interesting about this is that the Federation is kind of flipped. Their first version cruiser, which is like the Constitution, famous Enterprise, we'll call it the Christopher Pike iteration of that ship, is a 7-8. 7 attack, 8 defense. And then once things come on a little later, it's a straight up 8. So what's interesting about this is that the D6, which is sort of like a stripped down, well, a bare bones cruiser, we'll call it, is only a 7 attack, but the more flushed out D7 is an 8-7. So a little frustrating from our perspective because the D7 should be a bigger, better ship, right? Like it, whereas the D7C, which is the command cruiser variant, that's like Kronos 1 from Star Trek 6, the Katinga. The Katinga class cruiser, that is a straight 9. Now that's not unusual for this M-era command cruiser, but, that's what it is. Now, what's interesting about that is when you go to the D6C, so the command cruiser variant of the D6, it's a 7-9. 7 attack, 9 defense. Huh. Interesting. But the point here, regardless, is that as you go through these ships, you'll notice the release date. So 121, then the commando version of this ship is in 124, as well as the penal colony ship version. Then you're going to see a survey or survey ship, which is in year 125. The diplomatic cruiser version is 126, and you can carry on here. So you see that there's like this delayed onset. In some of the other factions, when and I'll explain why this is in a second, but they'll get their M designs and they get them all at once, or they get like a big chunk of them all at once. It's not like spread out like this is. It's, let's say 120 is their nominal year. 120, cruiser, frigate, destroyer, bang, they got it. Those are the core ships you need anyway, and then they get those. Their variants, like the surveys and commando ships and things like that, they come a little later perhaps, but they get the bulk of the base designs right away. Whereas you can see here, these are all delayed by a certain amount. 121, and then 13 years later, we get the D7. That's quite a delay. Even the command cruiser is in 136 for the D6. Look at that. To get the command cruiser variant, it takes another 15 years to get that. That's vicious. Now, the advantage of this is that you will notice that the build cost is has a direct relationship between the attack factor and the defense factor, meaning it's kind of like the average of the two. Look here in the D7, you can see it's got an 8 attack, 7 defense. It's a 7.5 build cost. Okay. What about the D6? D6 is, now that's not fair. The D6 is a 7.5 for a 7 attack ship. I feel like that's kind of ripping us off. What else we got here? The diplomatic cruiser is a, oh, because it's got 2 diplomatic teams. I see. What else we got here? So the D6C, okay. Again, I don't know that this is exactly, exactly what I was hoping for, but the D6C is a 7.9 and it costs you 8.5 to build. I don't know. I mean, I would have preferred a little like an 8.9, and then if an 8.9, you get an 8.5, but it is what it is, right? So again, the ships are just a little bit cheaper for the Klingons than they are perhaps for other factions. But so for example, I believe the Feds, if memory serves, I'd have to go check it out. But I recall a 7.8 cruiser, the Constitution, was 8 EP to build. So I may be wrong on that. We'll have to ask Andre. Andre is the Feds this go round, so he'll know. But either way, there's a trade-off when it comes to the cost of these ships versus what you got. So that's something to think about. But as for the tech rush, I had rushed these ships. I got M-Tech, and then I was sort of SOL. I got one particular ship right off the bat at M, which was their light cruiser. So you could build a whole bunch of these. They're called YCL, so Y-era light cruisers. And then you can convert them. They are, for the Feds, they are upgradable into their CL, which is a straight-up 5 ship, which is pretty good. That ship was that was a great ship, except I didn't have prepared a whole bunch of Y light cruisers to be able to swap out. Let me take a sip. So, like I say, it is what it is. But something to think about when you're doing a tech rush, or trying for it anyway, is what are you going to get when, and how much of an advantage, if any, is it? Because of what we talked about when it comes to the industrial bonus or like advantage that you get, which you essentially don't get in this game, and what are you getting as far as a unit, like how powerful are your units in relation to what you had before, the tech rush didn't necessarily provide me a huge advantage. The two big advantages of M-Tech ships tend to be the fact that they're a little bit stronger, like they have a better attack and defense factor, generally speaking. And they can move 6 hexes versus the 4 of Y ships. So that provides them a little extra reach. Basically, it's like a boxer. You can jab, and the other guy can't quite catch you with his jab. So they were really good for punch and counter-punch kind of moves. But you can only build so many of them. And they are, you only have that advantage for a short period of time. I doubled down early in that first game with all my R&D resources, and I had about a 10-turn advantage when it came to M-Tech, which was great because I got M-Tech and I built them right away, but I only had about 10 turns where I had M-Tech before the other guy. And that was advantageous. Like I blew up a base or two, but I didn't get any substantial advantage on that. Now, I tried it in the second game, and it was even less effective in the second game because the player, I just happened to be neighbors with the guy who's playing the Tholians this time, and he was very good at using the Y ships on the defense. So he was basically, what ended up happening is he brought more ships to every fight than I did. My ships were stronger, but he had more of them. So what ends up happening is you fight a war of attrition. The little ships, the ships that are more numerous but weaker, end up wearing your more powerful ships down. And in any particular fight, you end up losing because he can bring at least a third more ships to a fight based on the fleet cap alone and the cost of building them. Also, repairing them can be very efficient too. So in any particular fight, you go up and fight each other and you walk away without a decisive victory. He's got a bloody nose. You've got a bloody nose. But the other player is able to recover very quickly and you not as much. And so when you go back and fight again, you're not 100% and he is. And what ends up happening in that regard is you end up losing that war of attrition, which is a huge pain. So how do you get around that? The strategy that we're employing, or at least so far in this game, is building the economic base early. Over the past couple of campaigns, we've seen this strategy or this sort of data set really play out every single time. If you are able to have a significant economic advantage over everybody else, meaning that you've explored more territory and have a bigger economic base, you disproportionately have an advantage over the other players because you can take more damage over time and still produce an output as much as you were before. What's also really valuable is that as you grow your base economy, and maybe you start off with a 5-point advantage and then it gets to 10 and then you get to 15, but as you have that advantage, that's points that you can put into R&D. And then when that kind of snowballs. So it's a long-term strategy, but what ends up happening is that whereas your opponents are focusing all their economic power into building ships and slipways and things to fight you, you can still do that and still do research at the same time, consistently, persistently, over the course of the game. How does that play out, Tony? Let me show you. So first of all, let's look at the tech tree, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. This is our tech tree. You don't really need to know all the little things here, but on the top here, we've determined or we've identified key technologies that you need for each milestone tech advantage. Let's zoom back in here a little bit. We go to the R&D tab where we actually put the money where your mouth is, and you can see here that, for example, the Y tech, you've got them highlighted. In this case, I've attained Y tech, and you can see all the technologies that are associated with these. So, for example, Y tech, you need transporters at this point it was range 4, I believe. Range 3, sorry. And so anyways, you've got these different technologies here that you needed. So I clicked all those or got all those, checked those boxes when it came to Y tech, and now we're working on the M. In the M category, you can see that you're going to need construction for M slipways. You're going to need phaser 1s for phasers. You're going to need overload for your heavy weapon, which in our case is the disruptor. You're going to need 6 hexes for speed, which I mentioned, for example, M chips can go 6 hexes. Tractor beams have to be at range 2. And transporters range 4. These are all the requirements for M tech. Now, what you do is you apply 1 point of EP per turn into each one of these things to get those techs. Now, what you can notice here is that Y tech has 1, 2, 3, 4 requirements. Okay. M tech has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And some of them are not the same as Y tech. Like obviously they do cross over, but there's a lot. There's a couple here, 3 that are in addition to. Then when you go to the next level, which is GW, you'll notice that there's many techs here that are not related at all to MTech. So for example, in MTech you needed heavy weapons and phasers, but that's not a factor for GW. GW has something totally different. And there's a total of, let's count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different techs, which are not the same as MTech, which meaning that the investment you made early on in the game on Y or MTech doesn't necessarily pay off in the long run for GW. Things to think about. And especially because whereas if you're investing in Y, it carries over in your research for M. When it comes to these here, for example, you've got strategic movement, command and control, bases, repair. They don't have anything to do with the stuff you researched before. And because they don't, you really have to like invest in them early. Otherwise, you'll get to MTech and then GW won't come for a while. Last game, I encountered GW Tech for the first time as an MTech, and wow, it made a huge difference. I wasn't expecting the substantial and seismic shift in the sort of strategic, well, actually tactical battle results that I was experiencing. I was toe-to-toe with the other player, no problem. In fact, I would say that I had advantage over the other player until he got GW. And then as soon as he got GW, the tables turned in a big way. Every capital ship he brought to a fight was 20 to 30% stronger than the ship I had. I might have had more ships, but I started losing a war of attrition because he already had numbers on me. He had that larger economy I was making reference to, and he had GW tech. So he had more ships, more powerful ships, and was just pounding me. And I was losing. I was just straight up losing. There was nothing I could do because every engagement I had, if the engagement was close, it was close, and it was basically a draw. But the majority of our engagements were distinctly in the other player's advantage, and he just pummeled me. It sucked. It sucks being on the losing side, and you can't do anything about it. All right. So that's the strategy that lost me the first game, which was tech rush, and what I'll call is I built tall. So for example, I would spread out. If we go to the map here, you can see. So I would spread out these long sort of bicycle spoke tendrils to be able to reach and encounter the other players. And then I would sort of like T-stop my way. I would go to the border. I would establish a base right on the border or wherever I would encounter them. And then I would build out from there like a T. And that's great, except that I would encounter them without having the economic support in the back end. By the time I encountered them too early. It would be the equivalent of like how Picard met, in Next Gen, how the Enterprise encountered the Borg and they weren't ready for them. And that's what I would do. I would encounter these guys right around my tech rush so that I would encounter them without the economic and logistical support to support those M-Tech ships that I was throwing at them early. And I lost. I'd win early in the sense that I would win the first couple battles as the other player would reposition to counter what I was doing. But at the end of the day, because my supply chain was so fragile, he would end up taking me out. And I only say he in this context because all the other players in this game currently are men. But I would love to see what it would be like to have women and men playing this game. It'd be great. In fact, if you are a woman, please reach out in the comments. I'd love to see if you'd like to join in on this game. Maybe you'd like to be a governor of Klingon province. That'd be awesome. Okay. Let's go back to the spreadsheet here and look at what we've done over the past couple turns. So you'll notice from turn 66 to 70, there's this 13, consistent 13 on the bottom. So just as a reminder, what that is building a base every turn and the Dreadnought project. The Dreadnought project is critical for two reasons. Dreadnoughts, because as we explored in the last live stream, because of their size, they get a +1 modifier to exploration. They're not a survey ship. They don't get 2, but they do get 1. Put a prime team on there that gives them a +2. So that makes them, and of course with M-Tech sensors, which we have, by the way, we don't get the -1. So it's a 60% chance to explore these Fog of War hexes, which is the best we're going to get versus anything else. For example, a large survey freighter, which we don't have any more of, because we swapped them out with survey ships. The large survey freighter, which we had at the very beginning of the game, they only get a +2, and they can't carry prime teams. The small exploration freighter can't carry a prime team and only gets a +1. So they're a 50-50 shot to begin with, whereas the Dreadnoughts are a 60% chance. So better chance with the Dreadnought for sure. Also, Dreadnoughts command rating 10. They're the only ship that we have that has a command rating 10. It's important to have those as sort of the command ships for any significant fleets that we're going to have in the future when we have fights, because we want to bring as many ships to a fight as possible. And a unique Klingon thing is, as we go back here to go to the MSIT, as a reminder, go up. As a reminder, you can see here, this is the C4. That's the ship that we're building when we build our dreadnoughts. And the C4 Bravo here is a upgraded version of the C4. Now, it only has speed 4, meaning that it basically has Y-Tech engines, but we can upgrade it with M weapons, meaning that it goes from a 6.8 to a straight 8. That ends up becoming the equivalent of our cruiser, although it can't move as fast. It has a command rating of 10 and an 8 attack and 8 defense. That's our money ship right there. That is the ship that's going to make the difference, not only in the fights that we have to bring more oomph to the fight, but more attack factor to the fight, but also it's the thing that's going to make the difference because we're bringing more attack factors to start with. Now, hopefully we'll get the Dreadnought slipway sooner rather than later. I mean, that's going to be quite an ask, but when we can build it, the C6 is a 10-12 ship, which is pretty good. So I'm looking forward to that when we can start to build it. Again, it's an MTech ship. It just comes late. That's the only problem. Right, so that's why we're building as many of these dreadnoughts as we can, because we can upgrade them relatively inexpensively. It only costs 3 to upgrade them. And so when we can upgrade them, we turn them into, now granted, that happens shortly after we get MTech at 122. So our C4s at 6.8s get upgraded to straight 8s, and that makes them an incredibly potent and powerful ship. The only really big disadvantage for them is the speed 4, but could be worse. So we're continuing with the Dreadnought project. That's our default. You can see here below, we've also got the research and development in this particular column. Now that is a tally from the previous screen. So let's go to R&D. So as you can see here, we'll go to the top and work our way down. So I'm going to copy this hex and move it on. So we're building the construction because we want M slipways, and we're going to go all the way to turn 75 with that. Why? Because not only is it important for M slipways, but in the construction tech tree construction, you will see here that there's M slipways at year 120. And then after that, it's the DN slipway at 150. And we want that DN slipway. Obviously, we need to also do it for GW eventually, but we really want those DN slipways. That's the objective here, sort of in the long term. And it also adds investment to be able to get GW tech when the time comes. So we're going to continue to invest in construction. I feel like that was different. We were adding large ships. Hold on. I am slightly confused. Oh, that's because of battleships. Okay. So here's the thing. Normally, the large ship research is blocked or not available because it's for DNs, right? But because the Klingons can build battleships early, that's why we're investing in it. So why do you want to build a battleship, Tony? Battleships, if we go back to the MSIT, yeah. So we can build battleships in Y and M, but we have to have the technology for it. So what that means is that in year 122, we can start building the B4B, which is a straight up 12-14 ship. It costs us quite a bit to build at 25. That's ridiculous. But, and it's only speed 4, but it's a great ship. We could even just build the Y version and it's still a good ship at 914. Man, and then we can upgrade it from there. Woo. I mean, it costs the same to build. So, you know, it's best to it's best to be able to just build the B4B, but we need to be able to research and have battleship tech in order to be able to do that. So let's go back here. So it would seem, based on the way this is looking, we've already discovered I feel like I've had a conversation with the GM about this specific issue. Aha. So these black hexes or black squares indicate technologies that we have discovered. Okay? We have 4-hex supply, crippled ships through wormholes, and battleships. We have discovered the battleship tech. So what does that mean? That means that we can start using the battleship rule from an earlier live stream. Basically, we can build battleships the same way we're building dreadnoughts right now. I will endeavor to engage the game master specifically on that front so we can find out more about that. But what that means is that we can't invest anymore in that tech until we get M slipways. Sorry, until we get DN slipways, and then the large ship tech will open. And oh, hold on, come back here. And then, so DN slipways will open, and then the next big tech really is the heavy DN, which is a good ship, but it's sort of a less of a concern for us. So we're going to take the money we were investing in that for battleships, and we're going to invest it in this GW tech for repair. That is going to be a huge thing. Remember I talked about the war of attrition? That's going to be a big factor as we move further on in this game. Again, we're going to continue with supporting our supply. So the more we can supply forward, the better. We're going to need, I mean, if we can get to supply 6, that'd be great. But right now we're working towards supply 5. Bases. Bases are huge. So right now, you know that we can build the YBS. And we'll go back to the map here. We can build the YBS, which is this little guy right here. Oh, let me switch. There we go. YBS, which is this little ship, this little thing right here, a 4.8, and then the YDK, which is an 8.16. However, when we can start building things like star bases and stuff like that, ooh-wee. Star bases. Let's go to the MSIT. Let me show you what a star base can do. So Starbase, M-era Starbase, comes available in year 140. Now, granted, that's based on our tech. So, but the thing about a Starbase, it's a 36 attack, 32 defense. Has repair twice that of a YDK. And it has sort of modules that you can attach to it, or like add-ons. So we'll start with a BSM, a Battle Station M. So the YBS will become a BSM. That we can build, and then that goes up to becoming a BATS, a battle station, and then we can go to a starbase. Getting the starbase is going to be huge because the next level up from that in GW is a starbase without the M, and it's a straight up 50. And that's once you start building those, it's so hard to blow those things up. They're just very, very powerful. That being said, in the last game, he was blowing up mine, but it's a really tough thing. So important to be able to build those bases because we want to be able to get to a point where we can start building star bases, if only for the repair capability, but certainly because they're hard targets and they're hard to blow up. Command and control, again, it's a GW tech. We want to be able to continue to develop that. Strategic movement. Strategic movement's important because once you build something or repair it, it has an automatic free strat move. Strat moves are basically, in this case, for example, it's a matter of distance that you can travel. And in this case, the next piece of tech that we're looking for is we're going to, whatever the capacity is for strategic movement, there's only so many ships you can move at any one time. And it'll be a maximum of 6. So let's go look at strategic movement. Here we go. So for example, right now we've got a strat distance of speed times 2. So if you have a 6, you can go to a 12, meaning that in a strat move, you can move 12 hexes in a strategic movement phase. This one here is going to be capacity 1 + 1 per YDK. So basically 2 per YDK or starbase to a maximum of 6. And then the next big one here is distance times 3. That's killer. And then the next one after that is an unlimited distance. Those are the big milestones. We're looking for the speed that you can travel. So basically, you can build something on one side of the map and strategically move it to the other side of the map without any issue, as long as you have a supply chain that allows you to do that. And that will eventually, especially on this map, be huge. Back to the R&D. Okay, so we need to continue working on developing phasers, but we know that we're only going to get them. We don't need to go past the point where we're going to get MTech. So 103. So you can see that 102 right here. You can see that as I add points here, it adjusts here. This is part of the spreadsheet that was made. So 102 fall, turn 74, is the year that we're going to get phasers. So I don't need to put any more in that past that. Now, let's see if we can do the same thing here. 102 fall. Bang. We're going to get overloads. That's all we need. Again, we're going to continue with speed because the GW piece is important. So we're going to continue to invest in that. We're going to continue to invest again in tractor beams, again, working towards GW. We know that MTech, we've got the MTech requirement for labs. What's going on here? Okay, let's go look at the tech for labs. Okay, labs. Labs, no penalty. So we have labs, no penalty, which is what we have right now, meaning we can start researching scout functions. So we should be able to start researching scout functions, and scout functions are important because EW in a fight, two things. One, it's going to really change the nature of the fight, and two, this allows us to be able to build more scouts as we progress. So we're going to start putting money. So we're going to continue putting money into labs because R&D teams, but we're also going to start putting money into scout functions because we should have that at this point. Boom. I'll have to mention that to the game master. And as well, we'll put in transporters again because it's a GW. So one of the reasons why we need the GW for scout functions, let me see here. This is the no penalty. This is what we need for GW, I believe. Hold on. Yeah, no penalty. That's what you need for GW. See this column up here at the very top? And you can see here, no penalty right there. That's what we need. So we need to be able to get to no penalty at 134. So once we can get to that, that'll be kicker. All right, so that's all our R&D. That's going to be expensive. So let's go back to the map here. You can see that we're spending 13 EP on R&D. That's crazy. And the only reason we dip down to 11 is because we're not spending money on those things. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, back to the money. So we know that here, let's plan out the money. So we know that we're going to be at peace, or at least we can anticipate that we're going to be in peace until turn 75. We can anticipate that our economy will be at least 50.5. It will most likely grow, but there's a chance it could go down based on some kind of catastrophe or temporary event. And so that gives us, as you can see here, total expenses right now are a little over 13 because of our deficit from the term before, and then 13. The current treasury is 15, so we've only got about. Oh no, we got a good amount of money there. Okay, so let's start with 13 and see where that puts us. So it puts us at minus 11. Huh. Okay. Well, we want to keep building the Dreadnought project. Let's just see what this looks like. We're going to put 10 all the way to 75. This is the base building. Okay. All right. So we've got base building all the way to there. I want to keep building. I want to keep building those dreadnoughts. But we know that we're going to get MTech in probably turn 75 or 74. So let's see here. What if this was 13? Yeah, that's going to bump us over. That's not good. Okay, so let's take a break. Hey, Lokes. My dog is right here beside me. It's kind of hot right now. There we go. Okay. So it is, we're now just past an hour here on the live stream, and we've got a lot to do on the turn. So based on what you can see here, and I can tell that my, let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. You can see here that, based on our income and kind of what's available, we're not necessarily building a lot of ships. Now, remember, we're concerned about two things from the strategic level. One, our total number of ships, and we're going to be getting MTech real soon, so we want to make sure that we have, we're not investing a whole bunch of money in building ships that are going to be useless, right? The reason why we're building dreadnoughts, again, because of the upgradability and the exploration perk that they give us. And of course, we need to build bases because the bases allow us to be able to expand our logistical network. If we can't expand, then we can't do what we need to do. So, for the purposes of today, we're going to take a break here at the little past the 1 hour mark, and we will resume this tomorrow at 8 o'clock, where we will start talking about the nitty and gritty of the accounting spreadsheet here, and we will get into what it is we're actually going to build. Let me quickly go over here, and I will take a quick look. We got some folks who have jumped in on the live stream here on YouTube. Oh, hey, Athos. So, hi, Athos on Twitch. I apologize for taking so long to get to you here. It's challenging to monitor the chat concurrently. So, Athos, greetings. Comstar is what you get when you let a telecom company cloak itself in religion and have it whore technology. Not to mention that the plus symbol indicates that it's a Mauler. Thank you. So it will direct damage against targets of its choosing at a 1-to-1 ratio instead of 2-to-1. So this, Athos, you are obviously a player of F and E. The D6L, D6C, when refitted, had better defenses being designed for drone defense on the Kzinti front. Look at this. Athos, the man with all the numbers. Oh, Athos. Athos. Tisk, tisk. So for all those of you who are watching and are following on Twitch, Athos is the Paravians. So Mike is or should say Athos is a phenomenal knowledge base when it comes to all things F&E. Filthy spies. And so he knows all the nitty and gritty of what's going on. Yeah, to be fair, Athos played the Klingons in the last game. Here I am swinging around a knife, very Klingon of me. So he played the Klingons in the last game, built battleships early, and yeah, in fact, it was funny because in this game, we have, for those of you who followed the original series, there is the Klingons, obviously, and then there's an episode where they encounter the Romulans, and the models, because they didn't have enough Romulan warbirds, they just used the Klingon ships, which led to a story in canon where basically the Klingons swapped a bunch of ships to the Romulans and they refitted them and made them Romulan. They call them the K-series. So we had Riemann Romulan ships that were basically the Klingon fleet. So the Klingon ships, but Romulan Romulan refitted Klingon ships, and then the Klingon ships. And in the last game, we had the Remans versus the Klingons. The Remans did not do too well. So yeah, that was it was great. But here at 104, 1 hour, 4 minutes into this live stream, we're going to take a break, and we will come back tomorrow, tomorrow being Wednesday at 8 o'clock, to be able to resume our discussion on the spreadsheet. What's interesting about this, of course, folks, is that Athos is a player in the game, playing the Paravians, and he's getting the detailed notes of what we're doing on our spreadsheet. Normally, we don't see that from other players. We have to guess at what they're doing. But of course, he gets an in-depth description and a detailed tour of our spreadsheet and where we're spending all our money. Lovely. But if you are watching this sometime after right now and you are interested in joining us in this wonderful game of Federation and Empire that we are calling Star Trek Lost Stars, then please feel free to hit that follow button. Hit that subscribe button if you're so inclined. Give us a thumbs up if you like what we're doing. And if you are wanting to participate in this game with us, then please head on over to Star Trek Lost Stars over at patreon.com. So patreon.com/Lost Stars, and take a look and see how you can get involved as either taking control of your own ship, task group of up to 3 ships, take control of a fleet of up to 10, or be a governor of a province that we will carve out for you within the Klingon Empire. Do you want to take a province close on the Paravian border? Are you going to stir up trouble with those space Mongols? Or are you going to decide to go elephant tusk hunting with the Tholians there? Or maybe you're just, want to get into some drinking games with our Montreal Canadian loving Federation player. And I apologize for all you Montreal Canadian fans out there. I mean, nothing short of a miracle is going to beat Tampa Bay at this point, but never stop praying. So with that being said, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us here today on our live stream. Tomorrow, we will be coming back at 8 o'clock, and we will be doing a more in-depth discussion on exactly how we're going to map out that spreadsheet, exactly what we're going to be doing, and I look forward to seeing you then.